Welcome along to the Army List Analysis series. We're continuing to look at the armies in late antiquity. If you want to look at my other videos, I've done a whole series on High Middle Ages and also classical. So you can check those videos out. Today we're looking at the Scots-Irish 50 BC to 476 AD, and they have no allies. It's a pretty straightforward army. It's funny really, because I said the other day we're going to start looking maybe at more cavalry heavy armies, and in late antiquity I do think it's quite an exciting period because you have very different armies. Thinking classical, it's more straightforward, pikes, hoplites, Romans, Carthaginians, a lot of pike armies. In High Middle Ages, you get a lot of the defensive spear in all armies almost. But I think in terms of diversity and strange kind of quirky armies, I think late antiquity is the place to go. And this is quite a quirky army really, because we've got no bona fide cavalry. Now I was looking, what was the army I was looking at where this happened before, and it was a little bit worrying. I think it was with the Pictish 210 list, but I'm not so worried with this army, and that is because almost all of your infantry are light spear. And we're going to talk about that in a moment or two. But with the light spear, you can survive impact, and then a lot of the time that's the key for fighting cavalry. If you can get cavalry in melee, then probably the advantage mostly goes towards the infantry. We've got these Celtic chariots, and we've got 11. With this army, it's all about numbers. It's completely about numbers. This is 1600 points. This is what we used to play in the league. The league is over now, it's finished, but there'll be new leagues popping up, I'm sure. And for late antiquity and classical, we played 1600 points. For High Middle Ages, we played 1200 points, so then the armies were a little bit smaller. But when you've got 11, these are all superior quality light chariots. As I mentioned in that video on the Pictish 210 list, the chariots are okay. They're essentially a delaying, annoying, distracting force, because they can survive impact against most cav. They're actually up 50 against armoured cav, which is the worst type of cav really. Noble cav, they're evens. Light lancers, they're evens. And then when you get to the veteran cavalry, they're 100 down. But then the armoured veteran cavalry is 60, and these units are only 36. And then once in melee, they're only 50 down against noble cav. 100 down against noble cav, 50 down against armoured cav, 50 down against light lancers, 50 down against Indian cav. So they can actually survive. When you put them up one-on-one against cavalry, they can actually survive. And then if you've got the numbers, because a lot of the time, maybe not so much in late antiquity, because cavalry force tends to be bigger, but still 11 chariot units, that's quite a lot. So if you can go one-on-one against some cavalry and then try and flank with your other chariots, that can be quite effective, because they will hold, mainly down to their quality. And then we've got a nice mix here. You've just got, all together at the moment, we have got 23 infantry units, which is absolutely massive for the period. I looked yesterday, I looked at the Armenian list. They had 4 irregular foot and then 5 massed archers. So they didn't even have any proper heavy foot or any real decent infantry at all. The Visigoth list had 12 infantry. About around 10 to 12 is the norm. Sassanids had 8 in my build. Okay, the Pictish, they had 17, but that's quite unusual. Arab City had about 10 in my build. Bosporan 12, Lombard 6, Palmyran about 10. So a lot of armies might have 10 to 12, but you know, you've got more than double. So this is very much a swarming army, And these Scots-Irish foot only cost 33, and in my tests, when I was testing them out against, you know, the standard infantry of the period and what you're probably likely to fight against Pictish spear, they are evens on impact and only 50 down in melee, which is really, really good, because you've got to remember the Pictish spear, I think they're about 54, so that's 21 points more than this unit, and yet they're evens on impact and only 50 down. If you're only 50 down on the enemy in melee, you can last. More often than not, you will last. Then you've got your quality units. We've got picked Scots-Irish foot. 45 is a bargain. Against your standard infantry they'll face, they're about 50 up on impact. Against Pictish spear, Arab foot, Bedu foot, Sassanid foot, they're all 50 up on impact. And in melee against all those units, apart from the spear, they're 38 up in melee. Against the spear, they're evens. So again, quality really helps. And then these units, I've got 2 at the moment in this build. They are the picked warband, fantastic in this period. Impact is about 160 against your average infantry. Pictish spear, Bedu foot, Sassanid foot, they're all 160 down against the picked warband, so you can easily disrupt, even get some double drops sometimes on infantry. I also tested out these units against Cav, and they last because of the light spear. So the Scots-Irish foot against noble Cav, they're evens on impact. They're 50 up against armored Cav on impact, and then it goes to their 62 down against noble Cav in melee and 37 down against armored Cav. But you know, that's not too bad for a unit that only costs 33. It's not bad. The picked version, they do pretty well as well against cavalry, against light lancers. They're 50 down, but then they're 38 up in melee. The Indian Cav, they're 100 up on impact, 38 up in melee. Noble Cav, they're 50 up on impact and only 12 down in melee, so they do really well against Cav. And also the picked warband do fine. They're actually up against most Cav. Veteran armored Cav, they're 50 up on impact. Noble Cav, they're 50 up on impact. And then it drops a bit, but even the veteran armored Cav that cost 60, they're only 25 down on impact, and you've got to also take into account the strength modifier. So as the turns go on, they will have an advantage over cavalry because of their large size. So a pretty decent army, even got a lot of skirmishes. We've got 12, which is probably a little bit more than most armies. Not so much flexibility. I suppose you could take out some chariots. I took out, say, 4. You could add another picked warband. If you want to add even more infantry, we could add 2 more of the Scots-Irish foot. So that takes us, for 4 chariots, we've got 1 nice superior quality warband unit and 2 Scots-Irish foot. So that takes us to 7 chariots and 26 infantry altogether, which is just humongous. It's huge. Huge army. I guess with so many units, you could spread out your line. You've got to try and stop maybe enemy cavalry coming around you. and your army's so big that it wouldn't it wouldn't be difficult. Maybe I would put my better units, or some of my better units anyway, in the middle. And I mean, this is just incredible, really. We've still got enough for some reserves. I mean, look at that. Look how long this line is. And just spread out our skirmishes a little bit. Let's even add another and then put. So we've got. Look at that. Right? That's an army that's ready to go to war. Really, I mean, again, in this period, infantry forces are lower than in other periods. So, you know, a lot of armies is around 8 to 10. This is just a huge army, and we've still got 7 chariots. When I looked at the win rates, it is 56%, which is up there with some of the best armies. The period, the Arab city was 58%, Bosporum was 56%, the same as this. Lombard was 57%. Those are the best so far. So it's up there with the best best army so far. And that has to be because of just how many units you can bring. Disadvantages. Sometimes in my tests, the Scots-Irish foot were double dropping on impact because they are medium foot. But not so many of them. And when you've got so many units, if 2, 3, 4 of them double drop, then you've got 26 infantry units, and some of them are your better quality units that are disrupting enemy units at the same time. It's probably not a big issue. It's probably more of an issue if you go in with part of your army and then you get all the double drops, then you've got a problem. But if you try and that's probably one of the key factors playing with this army is you've got to get all your units going more or less at the same time to maximize the potential of this army. Don't let part of your army get isolated. My rating, about a B+. You are limited in terms of cav, and you haven't got any lancers. As maybe you're facing elephants, cataphracts, better quality infantry. But when you've just got so many infantry units, and what have we got here? 9 superior quality infantry units with this build. That's pretty good. 12 skirmishes as well is a nice number. Fairly straightforward army. Not a lot of kind of component parts to it. With other armies, it's a bit more difficult because you've got to, use your lancers at the right time, or elephants at the right time. Horse archers are, it's a particular way to play with them. But with this army, it's a swarm, isn't it? It's the infantry swarm. because a lot of your infantry, in fact, is it all of it? All of your infantry is medium foot. So when you've got quite a lot of rough ground, this map, although saying that, you know, even though you could say it doesn't have so much, there's still patches here, here, here. There's patches all over. So that's an advantage for your infantry. You can capture and hold these points, and it'll be hard to do to dislodge you. We don't have any massed archers, which is a pity, but you know, we've got 12 skirmishes, so that should be able to they should be able to help us out there. Okay, so that's about it. It's a B+ from me. If you want to try out this army, then do. It could be quite an interesting army to try out. Then you can see how light chariots work, and how cavalry does against these kind of units. Okay, thanks a lot for watching, and see you again soon.